We be live, and I'm fresh out of shower.
Hello.
I didn't know I was gonna make it. I was like in the shower, and I'm like, oh shit! Like I need to speed this thing up. I need to speed
Yeah.
it up. And
I was like,
yeah, like I came out of shower and said like, where are you? I'm like, oh my god! All right, yes. Okay, Susie was nervous. What are we talking about here today?
well, for those who cannot deduce by the title, we are talking about the results of Iran's most recent presidential election.
That's right. And I have
last
watched.
week.
Yes, I have watched a lot of people cover the results,
Mhm.
and I'm very disappointed. Okay, guys, the reason why you come to here to watch what me and Suze have to say. Okay, Suze is not an expert, by the way.
That's not true.
You know she's true. Hey, you know that's true. Come on, don't you know that you know more than most people. You know some details about.
Yeah, but not an expert at all.
Yeah. Expert is like a loose definition. Okay, well, I'm an expert. Okay, Suze might not be an expert because I've been listening to a lot of experts, and they're getting so many things wrong. Okay, here's the thing: are you not an expert if your takes is more accurate than most of the people that I'm watching right now that are getting invited to shows and like you are you?
How do I know that I'm the most accurate though? How would I know that?
All right. Okay. Well,
I'll take your word for it, though. It's very flattering.
No, guys. Susanna keeps talking about the elections behind the scene with me, and I watch other people cover their commentary, and her commentary is good. She just has a hard time keeping.
I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, you have an imposter syndrome. You need to get over that. I was watching Carl Kolinsky cover this.
Oh boy, wait! I can only imagine. I didn't watch that.
Oh my god! Oh, I was watching Carl Kolinsky's commentary on the Iran elections. And I'm like, I need to do a stream just so that I could review his take on it. Like after this, like maybe next week.
Okay, I would love that.
Yeah, the next week we have a stream that we're scheduling. I'm gonna have to delay that on Wednesday stream that we have next week because I'm gonna have to cover what Kyle Kolinsky's bad take as usual on the Iran elections. All right, who we have in the live chat? Guys, ask your questions about Iran elections. I have some deep dives that I want to go into with you guys. Look at this.
Yes.
Look at what I have.
What I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
Crunched the numbers for you guys.
We're because I'm like original analysis here.
No, like look at this because I've been like looking at like even like Iranian media and like they're giving this is this number and this is that number and I'm like, okay, but what about that number? Like what? Like I'm looking at them and nobody's like giving me the numbers that I want to see. I'm like, I need to do it myself. Nobody is doing this. Like I need to adjust and like calculate, crunch the numbers in the Iranian elections to come up with my own deep analysis that you get nowhere else. Okay, other than here in Atheist Republic.
In fact,
unless
I have been looking for English-speaking commentators that offer even a fraction of the nuance that we have here, and I have found so far one.
Oh yeah, you did. Okay, so see, you know who's good because if you didn't know your stuff, you wouldn't know who's good.
Okay, you're right.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Well,
she's like, I've been listening to she's listening to Reuters, Al Jazeera, CNN, France 24, and she's like, oh yeah, I don't like this person is wrong. This person is like, I found somebody with good commentary. How would you know if they have good commentary unless you know the details? Like you're like listening to experts and like disagreeing with them. So you must know something, right? And Katie is here. Okay, so wait, we have some people. We're talking about Iran's elections. Khamenei has decided to play with his right.
You didn't read that correctly.
Oh.
You said a different word.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm not going to read that. YouTube is going to punish us. Oh, AP is here.
Yes. Hello,
if you want to
Prophet.
That's a good one. Hey, so a good joke by AP. That's unusual. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Apostate Prophet is saying, if you want to talk about Iran, you must first learn Persian and read the West. That's very good. I'm gonna I'm gonna use that joke. Right, that's pretty good.
Well, where should we start off today? Because
Right. So I don't know. Do you want to cover the basics? Okay, the basics, guys. This is not an election. Okay.
yeah,
This was the Iranian election. Okay, everything was predetermined beforehand by the supreme leader Khamenei. People say that, arguably correctly, that was always like this. There was always these were fake elections, because it wasn't only this election that you had what you call Shura Negahban, which is the Guardian Council, who are half of them are picked by by the supreme leader Khamenei himself, and the other half is picked by the chief justice, who are also picked. The chief justice, who is picked by the supreme leader. So technically, there's half Islamic experts and half legal experts. The Guardian, okay, so the Guardian, the Guardian Council is it's a council in Iran who is a 12-member council, which six of them are Islamic jurists and 6 of them are legal experts. And the religious expert, the Islamic experts, are picked by the supreme leader Khamenei, and the legal experts are picked by the chief justice. But the problem is that the chief justice is also picked by Khamenei, so technically all 12 of them are picked by the supreme leader.
It's just how directly,
right? And these people are basically everything in Iran, right? So every law that gets passed, everybody that wants to run for anything, has to go through the Guardian Council. So you can't become even a candidate that people get to vote for you unless the Guardian Council approves. You could pass a law and the Guardian Council will like, it's a nice law you have there. It would be shame if somebody doesn't approve it, and they could just get rid of it. So technically it's like, is it a democracy? Like,
it's rigged.
I mean, if you are an idiot, then yes, it's a democracy, right? If you're a moron, then yes, Iran is absolutely a democracy. Sure. But if you, if you could just like, okay, yeah. So here's the thing: there's no such thing as an Islamic Republic. Okay, Islamic and Republic are contradictory terms. Okay, and there's nothing more. There's nothing that displays that more obviously than Iran as a country. The fact that an Islamic Republic is impossible. Okay, and guess who else? So guess who else believed that an Islamic Republic is impossible? That is, it's not, it shouldn't happen. Guess who?
Khomeini.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen. Susie. Okay, the founding
father.
The founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have, guys, we have audio recording of him saying that the people who fight for a republic are traitors. He said, the martyrs in the Iran-Iraq war, or before that or after that, he said, do you think they gave blood for a republic? He says, no, they gave blood for Islam. He says, we don't want democratic activists. We don't want to fight for freedom. We are here not to fight for freedom. We are here to fight for Islam. Khomeini is on record saying that if everybody is on record, guys, we have audio recordings of this. I'm not making this stuff up. Khomeini was saying, the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who he had to put the republic in there because he was competing with the communists. Okay, when it was the mullahs and the communists were fighting against the monarchs, they had to unite against the monarchs and get rid of the monarchs. At the early stages of the revolution, they had to both be empowered, like they were both like kind of had influence in shaping the Islamic Republic, and the republic had to stay there. Like if Khomeini hated the idea of an Islamic Republic, right? He wanted to be like, what the hell, Islamic Republic? What? Like we fought for bringing Islam. What the hell is this republic? But then it formed as a republic. But after it was formed and everything, Islamic Republic, he managed to execute all these commies, and
which ties into our new president.
Which is our new president was part of the Council of Death. I'm not making this stuff up. There was this council called, which was referred to as the Council of Death, who was responsible for executing these people who were associated with the Tudeh party, which was like a communist party, which eventually led to the MEK. These people were being executed in the thousands. And Susie, who was in 1988, which these thousands of people were the commies who were executed, right? The Council of Death, who Khomeini put in place without telling his own president, which was Khomeini and all that, right? Without telling most of these people, right? The Council of Death that he put in place to do these mass executions, one of the greatest mass executions that is not in our modern history that is not talked about, which happened in 1988 in my lifetime. Okay, that Council of Death. Who was on that Council of Death, Susie?
I would think it would be Ibrahim Raisi, the newly elected president of the Islamic Republic.
Exactly.
Oh.
No, I muted because it was a motorcycle. Anything in the live chat that we need to highlight? Because we are like anybody else asking.
Secularity is saying, it seems kind of weird message to the world when you put someone like that in the presidency. Well, especially considering that he is handpicked, and especially considering that he, as an individual, has been under heavy sanctions for many years.
Yes, but he's going to get diplomatic immunity or something like that now that he's president.
That's all it takes?
Yeah, I mean... Oh, yeah, we should actually bring up the Amnesty International letter... report on Raisi himself, because people think like Armin, he's like Armin and Susie, they're against anything Islam related. They're obviously against the mullahs. That's what they do. They're a bunch of, like they're like right. We're like right-leaning, far-right people who are just against anything Islam related, right, Susie? So you can't trust us.
We're far-right.
Well, some people will say, right? So,
oh, that's news to me.
Well, I mean, we're far left, we're far right, we're everything apparently. We're like Islamic apologists and Zionists and far right and far left, all at the same time. We're like the Schrodinger's, I don't know what activists. But yeah, so if you don't trust us, maybe take a look at the Amnesty International report that just came out on Raisi. He was, but here's the thing, Susanna actually, secular rarity is bringing up a good point. Raisi, here's the thing, Raisi was, I don't think you knew this, Susie. Raisi was Khamenei's student for many years. Did you know that?
Well, a lot of people call him his protege. I didn't realize that was actually quite literal. Like he was.
It was literal, like literal student. Yeah. Okay, so let me see. There's a question here. I'm having some problems with my connection. Are you seeing me getting cut, or is it Susie?
Not at all.
Okay. Follow-up question. Iranian nationalist told me he was. Guys, you're talking about Khomeini, and no, that's not true. Let's focus on this president. Guys, this is like not relevant to what we're talking about right now. Like you guys are talking about early, let's focus on the current elections, okay?
Well, I think to give some people some scale, the government of Iran recognizes that there were several thousand political prisoners that were executed.
Right.
But some estimations suggest a number exceeding 30,000.
Yeah, I mean...
I think the government acknowledges at least 3,000 to 5,000.
So something between 5,000 and 30,000 people were executed.
Oh my god!
What does Amnesty International say?
Oh,
What
I can.
number?
I'm looking at their report right now. Let's.
Guys, this is like this is not a small thing. Like, this needs to be the main highlight of this election. The guy that is now Iran's president was on the Council of Death. This is like a guys, this is like a villain. If you were like writing a movie about like villains and stuff, and you wanted to come up with a council name of a council that it would be too much, people like, this is not believable. What the hell? Like, no, this guy was literally sitting on the Council of Death, responsible for the murder of thousands of people who were in prison, not people who were like fighting in the field, or like without, these people did not have lawyers, were not like, there was no due process, there was nothing, okay? Just like eliminating people in the thousands without any due process. And this guy was in the council. Like, I think there was 4 or 5 people on the Council of Death, and he was one of those people, right?
Well,
This guy is Khamenei's. This guy is basically, they call him the Butcher of Tehran, because back in, was it 2019, the protest, he was like, after the protest, a whole bunch of people were arrested and executed in prison. So this, by the way, so you don't have to go back to 1989, 1988 to look for executions that this person is responsible. Even recently, based on the executions that this man ordered after the recent protests in Tehran, he got labeled as the Butcher of Tehran for recent crimes, not in the 80s. That's so, yeah. Anyways, what do you want to say?
should I just read what Amnesty International wrote?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Ibrahim Raisi must be investigated for crimes against humanity. Responding to today's announcement declaring Ibrahim Raisi as Iran's next president, Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Kalmard said that Ibrahim Raisi has risen to the presidency instead of being investigated for the crimes against humanity of murder, enforced disappearance, and torture. This is a grim reminder that impunity reigns supreme in Iran. In 2018, our organization documented how Ibrahim Raisi had been a member of the Death Commission, which forcibly disappeared and extrajudicially executed in secret thousands of political dissidents in Evin and Goharstadt. Is that how you say it? Prisons near Tehran in 1988. The circumstances surrounding the fate of the victims. Oh, thank you. The circumstances surrounding the fate of the victims and the whereabouts of their bodies are, to this day, systematically concealed by the Iranian authorities, amounting to ongoing crimes against humanity. As the head of the Iranian judiciary, Ibrahim Raisi has presided over a spiraling crackdown on human rights, which has seen thousands of peaceful dissidents, human rights defenders, and members of persecuted minority groups arbitrarily detained. Under his watch, the judiciary has also granted blanket immunity to government officials and security forces responsible for unlawfully killing hundreds of men, women, and children, and subjecting thousands of protesters to mass arrests and at least hundreds to enforced disappearance and torture and other ill treatment during and in the aftermath of nationwide protests of November of 2019. So that's what you were just referring to.
Yes. Wow, this actually confirmed everything I said more perfectly than I thought it would. But yeah, go on.
Ibrahim Raisi's rise to the presidency follows an electoral process that was conducted in a highly repressive environment and barred women, members of religious minorities, and candidates with opposing views from running for office. We continue to call for Ibrahim Raisi to be investigated for his involvement in past and ongoing crimes under international law, including by states that exercise universal jurisdiction. It is now more urgent than ever for member states of the UN Human Rights Council to take concrete steps to address the crisis of systematic impunity in Iran, including by establishing an impartial mechanism to collect and analyze evidence of the most serious crimes under international law committed in Iran to facilitate fair and independent criminal proceedings.
Right. So I know Susie saw this. Al Jazeera. So right after the election, I think only a day or half a day, a day or two after the elections, Raisi was put in front of international reporters, right?
Well, I want to backtrack a little bit.
Okay, I'll go back. I'll get back to this once Susie is done. Remind me that I was going to
I
say
thought
that.
it was Hemati and who was the other guy? Ali Reza?
I'm going to
The
get
other
to the
candidates?
numbers after.
No, I know. But I was going to talk about how they conceded very quickly.
Conceded, like, as in,
They
like, when.
congratulated Raisi for winning, like long before.
Yeah, I don't think that was a
officially
big deal because it was
Okay.
so obvious. And, like, long before, like, it was so obvious that he's the winner. It was obvious on day one. Like, I don't know. As soon as the poll numbers, no, like the numbers that came out and made him obvious that he's the winner. But you know what I was going to refer to, right? They're like about this thing that you just showed, right? So a lot of people thought, like, okay, so when this guy becomes president, the 1988 killings are going to be highlighted because a lot of human rights advocates are extremely frustrated about how the 1988 killings and executions in Iran doesn't get as the attention that other mass executions in history gets. You know, there are mass executions before 1988 and there's mass executions after 1988, and they often get more international attention than the executions of 1988 in Iran, right? These were, like, we're talking thousands of people who are still, their bodies have, people don't even know where their bodies are, right? This was like and nobody even has the accurate numbers. Everybody just knows it's in the thousands, either 30,000 or 5,000, but like, like that's a big gap, right? But it was massive. It was in the thousands, and it doesn't get highlighted. And some people like, well, can we now bring attention to this mass execution of 1988 now that the guy who was in charge of it is the president of Iran? And people are like, we wonder. Some people are like, okay, now that this man is president, I wonder how long is it going to take where the media starts paying attention to this? We got the answer. It was day one. Well, I mean, I'm really impressed. I'm really glad that Amnesty International came out right away with that, because that what you showed was what a lot of mainstream media started referring to immediately to make, because when we say it, right? Like when dissidents from Iran say it, when activists from Iran say it, people are like, yeah, you guys, anything that the government does, you guys are upset about it, right? But when Amnesty International came out and put that out, that gave mainstream media an excuse to keep have something to refer to, something that is legitimate, something that has authority. So you saw on CNN, Al Jazeera, France 24, Reuters, were like, according to Amnesty International. So I'm so glad that Amnesty International had that ready going as soon as he became president. They had that like boom, right? So because that dropped when it needed to, on the very first day that they put Raisi in front of international reporters, I'm so happy that at least one of the reporters, and guys, I know you don't like Al Jazeera, okay? But it was the Al Jazeera reporter that brought this up. It wasn't CNN reporter. It wasn't like all these other Western, like there was many reporters from so many different news outlets there, but it was the Al Jazeera reporter that specifically said, how do you respond to the allegations of human rights violation by you in 1988 mentioned in Amnesty International? So there's two things that happened when he brought this up. This was day one of his presidency, okay? Day one. First of all, the motherfucking translator didn't translate the entire thing. Because, guys, the 1988 executions are like a taboo thing to refer to. It's like the Tiananmen Square of Iran, right? You don't talk about it. It's in the past. Shh. Okay? So the reporter, who was like an Iranian reporter for the government, translating what the Al Jazeera reporter said, he was like, he was translating the question by Al Jazeera, and he didn't mention which executions he's referring to. Right? He said that there's some allegations about some executions. The translation
was just some executions.
there was like he specifically said there were. How do you respond to the allegations of human rights violations of some executions, even though the Al Jazeera reporter was specifically addressing the 1988 executions? The translator didn't like. I think he was. I don't know why, but I think he might have gotten in trouble, right? So he didn't mention that part, and that was amazing. But then Raisi's answer, like, I think all the Iranian media, like outside of Iran, they had like, say what now? Because Raisi's,
so good. It's bold.
oh, it was such a bold answer. Raisi's answer was that he needs to be congratulated as a defender of human rights. Okay, so not only he didn't come and defend himself, not only he come and say like he basically like, oh, so this is like the allegations, how do you defend yourself? Not only he didn't spend a second defending himself. He actually, instead of defending himself, he demanded congratulations from them for him being a champion of human rights. It was so bold that everybody, like the reactions on Iranian media, like outside of Iran, right? Because obviously inside Iran it's just full on congratulations and everything, right? But people were like, this man is so full. Like they were like, see, like they were so I don't know, every where's that, what's that meme where the guy goes like, what is that? Wait, I'm gonna
When I look for it, I always just go white guy blinking.
yeah, go with that. Find that. That was the reaction.
I feel that like that meme is like my inner personification. No, I mean he basically came out and said like, "You're welcome."
Yeah, you're
Where's
like, how do you respond? My
thank
response
you?
is you're welcome. Yes, exactly. Wait, there were some questions here. I need to. Qasim had a question, a good question that I missed. Qasim, ask your question again. Oh my god, I have to scroll all the way up now. Okay, let's read the comment then. He didn't accept his presence in the Council of Death in his speech a few days before the elections. Yeah, well, he was handpicked by Khomeini, though. We know that.
No, you know what's so funny though is that on the comments of all that Al Jazeera stuff, or just Al Jazeera coverage of the Iranian elections, there's this frequent comment of like, I'd like to see coverage of the democratic elections in Qatar.
Oh yeah, the classic whataboutism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Oh yeah, actually, we also have recording of Montazeri, who was supposed to be the supreme leader after Khomeini, who was against the mass executions of 1988, and that's why he didn't become the supreme leader, and instead he got house arrest until he died. We have recording of him directed at Raisi and the rest of the Council of Death, that you guys, like, even though this was a man who's responsible for like one of the founding fathers of the Islamic Republic of Iran, he basically lost all his power and authority because he fought against Khomeini because of all these mass executions, and he told the Council of Death that history will remember the Islamic Republic as a bloodthirsty regime, and you guys will go down as criminals in history for what you're doing. And we have an audio recording of this as well. Qasim is saying about, oh yes, this is the Qasim's question, saying Raisi's diplomatic immunity. Yes, you asked the question. I don't. So here's the thing. I don't think they're going to be able to not give him diplomatic immunity. People with really bad human rights records do have diplomatic immunity if they're like the president or even like a minister, to be right. So he is going to have his diplomatic immunity. But what I've heard, and I don't know if this is accurate or not because I'm not a legal expert, is that what you can do is, now that he's being highlighted, is to spend the next 4 or 8 years when he's the president, to build up the case for him, right? And basically, as soon as he's not president, to basically have everything that you need to bring him to the international criminal court. I know that Iran is not like a signatory, but it does have an effect. Okay, so some people think that if you're not a signatory, it has no effect, but it does have some effect. Okay. Oh my. Oh yeah. Some idiot in the live chat is like trying to blame everything on the USA. Yes, guys. No country has any problems unless it's because of the USA. USA is responsible for all the problems in the world, and no country in the world is responsible for any of the problems that is like everything. You guys are so US obsessed that everything has to be blamed on the USA. You guys are basically the same as the right-leaning people who want to give all the credit to the USA. You guys are just basically the same side of the different side of the same coin, which wants to just be so US centric that everything has to be blamed on the USA, right? Is so you're pathetic, basically. Okay. And you think like we don't know our history. Yes, we know that USA can be blamed for many things, including the many things that they did in Iran. But you guys are such simpletons. You think in binary black and white, that you want to associate all blame to USA. You completely dismiss all the problems that the people in their own countries are responsible for. Like, you don't associate blame with the people in Iran who are responsible for the Islamic Republic of Iran, because you are such bigots. This is bigotry of lower expectation, that you think like these people do not have enough, don't even have enough agency to cause their own problems. That's how US centric you idiots are. Anyways, do you want to highlight anything before we go to highlighting some numbers?
No, let's dig in.
Yes, they can. Cool. All right. So so these are the numbers that this part is the numbers that I took from what's being reported, and the rest is the numbers that I calculated myself. Okay. So this column is going to be the 2021 election. This is the election before it, and the election before it, and the election before it. Okay. So the turnout rate, this was the most important number in all of this, was the turnout rate. Okay.
Definitely.
This is everybody was looking for this, because Raisi winning, almost nobody anticipated. After the Guardian Council came out and said who's approved and who's not approved, everybody was like, okay, thank you so much, you just gifted it to Raisi. In fact, even Raisi supporters were kind of bummed out, because they were like, guys, you're making this too obvious. Like, they were like, okay, thank you for gifting this to Raisi, but this is a bit like too obvious. Like,
now we have a legitimacy problem.
Yeah, like, can you make it a little bit more challenging? Like, people are not gonna consider this guy the real winner if you guys didn't even let anybody else have a chance. Yeah, you had your hand up. You want?
I had a question. So when we're going through these percentages, is this percentage of voting age population? Or is this a percentage of registered voters? Because registered voters is usually a lot smaller than.
This is the number of percentage of all the people who could vote. So if the population of Iran is 80 million, this is the percentage of the 60 million of the people who can vote. Voting age and all that.
Who are legally able to vote, but they may not necessarily have to be registered to vote.
I don't think you need to register. I remember when I voted when I was a kid in Iran, I just showed up with my ID card and I just voted.
Oh,
guys, did they change that? Qasim, you're still in Iran. Do you have to register? I don't think you have to register. There's a page in your ID which is specifically for the stamps on voting, right?
Is that why everyone always has their fingerprint stamped?
No.
Okay.
No, there's two things. Okay, so you use your fingerprints for the paper that you use to vote, but everybody in their ID. So when you on your birthday, okay, when you're born, they well maybe not on the very first day, within the first week or so, you get like an ID notebook, okay, and that ID notebook, even though you're like 1 day old, has a page on it for your voting record already, okay, and every time you vote, I should bring my Persian ID and show you guys what, like, I have some stamps there, okay, but that was like back then when everybody voted, like that was like during Khatami time, like I voted for Khatami, like, but I was a kid, I had no idea what I was doing. Anyways, but you go and your ID card, you get, there's little boxes in that page, and every time you vote, you get a stamp on one of those boxes, okay. And what you want to do is you want to fill out those boxes as much as possible to prove that you participated. There could be consequences for people who don't vote, like government jobs and stuff. Like sometimes they check your ID and be like, oh, you didn't participate in this in legitimizing the Islamic Republic, why didn't you participate? Do you have a good excuse, right? And by the way, we'll get back to that. We'll get back to the fact that okay, so Qasim saying 85 million. Yeah, okay, 85 million. I said 80 million, okay? But Qasim, you don't need to register, right? As long as you show up with your ID. Oh, here, Puya saying, no, you don't. See, I was correct. Puya, thank you so much for confirming. Puya saying, no, you don't need to register. I literally decided to vote for Rouhani at the last minute. Yes, there's sometimes some people just decide last minute that they want to vote. So you are already registered by birth as soon as you get your ID notebook, okay? So basically, out of 85 million, I think 60 million, around 60, more than 60 million, no, I think 59 million, around 60 million people are at the voting age, okay? So when we say that the turnout was 48%, this is 48% not of 85 million, this is 48% of the 60 million who are at the voting age, okay? So I added the number, so you can see Raisi got 61% of the people who voted, not of the total country, of the people who voted, okay? So to figure out how many people voted hardliner, look what I did. I added Raisi's percentage, but I considered Rezai to be, anybody who votes for Rezai, I consider to also be pro hardliner because he was like a general in the IRGC and stuff. So just to be able to calculate what percentage of Iranian voted for hardliners, I added them together and I got 73%. So far, so good. Qasim is saying you don't need ID card, just national code. No, I'm not saying, Qasim, I'm not talking about the ID card, the Kart Milli, not the Kart Milli. I'm talking about Shanasname. I don't know how to translate Shanasname, the little notebook. You do bring your Shanasname, so you get the stamp. You don't need to bring your ID card. I mean, when I was voting, ID cards were not even a thing. I'm talking about the Shanasname. You need to bring that with you, okay? I think you need to. Yeah, I mean, if you don't bring that with you, you're not going to get the stamp. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, so the people who voted for Hemeti, I consider them to be voting reformer, right? So again, reformer, I understand that being a reformer is a joke in Iran. There's no such thing as reformist, but
especially in the previous list of candidates.
Exactly.
It's all relative, I guess.
Okay, Zara, you're a fucking racist. You're being racist to our to the other people here in the chat, and you deserve to be blocked. So get the hell out of here, you piece of shit. Zara was being racist to our Indian followers in the chat, and she was Persian, and so I'm so happy to get rid of bigots, and I'm so proud to be given an opportunity to remove Zahra and defend our Indians in the live chat from these bigots. Right? I got you, my Indian followers. And see,
don't worry.
I'm your white knight. This is how I defend you. Okay, somebody's being a
my
bigot in the
God.
live chat. I'll just get rid of her for you. Okay, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? Come here. Okay, show me where she hurt you. Okay, I'm here. Okay.
Oh my God. That got
All right.
close.
No, it's okay. Right. So we got rid of that bigot Zahra, which is nice. Okay, so reformer got 8%. These are the votes for Hemeti, and we got the vote. Oh, this is beautiful. Okay, so remember what I told you guys about getting the stamp, right? So this election was not about who's going to become president, because the person who's going to become president was already engineered, designed in a way that it's going to be racy. Okay, so what people were looking forward to seeing is how many people are going to turn up, because the people who are against the regime, they wanted to turn this election into a referendum, because they demanded a referendum, and the Islamic Republic of Iran is not giving them a referendum, because they know they're probably not going to survive a referendum. So people are like, these elections are fake. These presidents, that whoever becomes president does not represent the people. This is a sham. So we are going to vote by not voting, right? So we are going to make our voices heard by not showing up to vote. So in a sense, not voting will become a vote of no to the Islamic Republic of Iran. All right. So that's why there was a campaign started in Iran, which was the campaign called Rai Bi Rai, like vote no to voting. Basically, that's what it meant. Okay. So you can see actually in 2009 the turnout rate was 85%. In 2013 the turnout rate was 72%. Can I zoom in a little bit? No, it's okay. Does it? Okay, I think it's good, right? In 2017, the turnout was 73%, and in 2021, the turnout was 48%. Okay. However, you have to adjust. This is what everybody is going out and saying. Everybody, CNN, Al Jazeera, Kyle Kulinski, everybody is going like, the turnout was so low, it was under 50%. This is not the accurate turnout rate. Okay. The turnout rate needs to be adjusted, because look at the void votes. The void votes used to be around 2%. Like, even if you go back here, it was like this is much less even before in 2013. Okay, the void votes was around 13%. Yeah, go on, ask your question.
I didn't really explain the significance of them. These are people who have to vote.
That's what I was gonna get at.
Okay.
No, yeah, I was gonna get like, so what does this mean? Why did the void votes go up so significantly? Okay, so what I mentioned to you guys is, like, when you go vote in your Shanasnameh, which is your ID notebook, not your ID card. I don't know how to translate Shanasnameh, but it's your ID notebook. You get a stamp to show that you participated. Okay, and there's a lot of people say things about maybe there's consequences if of you not having that stamp. Okay, so it seems like what's happened, like, this is what everyone's understanding, is that with the campaign of not showing up to vote, because they were turning these elections into a referendum, there are some people who wanted to go collect that stamp, but they also didn't want to vote. So that's why this number is so high. This is like 4 million people showed up, and they didn't write anyone's name, or write some joke's name, write some celebrity's name, wrote some American celebrity's name, or stuff like that, right? So basically, it turned out into a void vote, right? And these are the people who were like, they were desperate for that stamp, but they also didn't want this government legitimacy by voting for Raisi or anyone else, or even the reformers, right? And that's why this is so high. So that's why I have an adjusted turnout rate. So everybody is saying the turnout rate is 48%. By my turnout rate is the turnout rate minus the people who voted and didn't write anyone's names, because these people, even though they voted, they didn't participate in the election. These people did not participate in the election. So the actual turnout rate is 42%. Okay? The people in the live chat, Oh my god, you guys are talking about something else. This is about something else. This is about something else. No, so I'm not going to highlight that. You guys are missing the point. No, Qasim, I have stamps too. Don't be upset about that. Don't. It's fine. Don't be. No, it make back then it was a different situation. Okay, so don't worry. Like the environment was different. Okay.
How
Yeah.
has there been a call for boycotting elections for several elections, and it just picked up a lot of steam for this one?
There was some here, but not like this one. You know what I mean? There was some call outs for boycott. Like the people are criticizing me for voting for Khatami. Like when was that? That was like 20 years ago. Like come on, guys. Like that at that time nobody was boycotting elections, and people are like, oh my god, Armin voted for Khamenei. Like you guys, like these are kids now that like are now like boycotting elections and everything. Like nobody was boycotting elections back then. Like we thought voting for Khatami is like gonna save the country. Like we were voting for the reformer. Like oh my god, Iran is gonna have peaceful relationship with their civilized world now, and blah blah blah, and it's gonna be wonderful investment. It's going to be hijab is gonna be gone, and we're gonna have like it's gonna be fantastic. International, it's the end of everything being fully Islamized. We were so excited. That's what we were told, right? So we voted for Khatami, okay? So and people now, these kids that never voted, they like, oh my god, Armin is a traitor because he voted back then. Like everybody voted back then. God damn it! Like yeah. Anyways, I'm getting angry.
Like, Armin's getting all defensive. Like I did what I had to do.
No, like they don't understand that there wasn't any boycott of elections back then, right? That was not a thing back then. Okay, but what is this?
Puya is saying, and they also actually forced some people to vote, like people doing military service. My friend doing military service was forced to vote, and he voted for Obama.
No, so yeah, exactly. This what he's saying is always part of this void count here is people who are forced to vote, but they get to the voting booth and they're like they hate the fact that they have to vote, so they just like vote Obama or something. They usually come up with funny names or something. But yeah, that used to be like around 2% or less. It was much less here, but now it was around 13%. These should not be counted as participation. Okay, that's why I'm saying everybody should be saying the turnout rate was 42%, not 48%, because this gets rounded up to 50. Everybody's saying like, oh, only half showed up, which is less than. It's really important that people understand that it was less than half, not half. Okay, makes a big difference. And it's also here, this 48 is getting rounded to 50, but if it was 42%, which is the more accurate number, it would get rounded down to 40. So 40% is the more accurate number that everybody should be saying, especially because Khamenei is on record saying that it's pathetic that in some countries people have only 40% turnout rate. And these countries should be embarrassed. And these countries are not real democracies and they have no legitimacy. We have on record, he's saying like, oh my God, imagine the countries where they have 40% turnout rate, right? And that's why I'm saying, because we have Khamenei on record saying that, we are like, okay. And he's like, he even admitted that if Iran has 40% turnout rate, that the Islamic Republic of Iran will have no legitimacy. Okay, so that's why I'm saying this is a number you have to report, because Khamenei, according to Khamenei, the Islamic Republic of Iran has no legitimacy and does not represent the people, according to Khamenei's own recorded statement. Okay, anyways.
Well, what about these other numbers you have here? So your anti-Islamic Republic percentages that you've pulled up, those who are non-political, and how you factored in the people who are non-political, like break that down.
Say that again.
All these other numbers you have down here at the bottom, like, because
yeah,
I mean, I know what the answer is, but like how you factored in the percentage of people who are not political, how that factored into your adjustment.
Right. So we saw that 73% of the people who voted for hardliners, but this is only the percentage of people who voted. So I wanted to come up with an adjusted number to see what the percentage of the country voted for hardliners, right? So basically, look, if you multiply the 73% times the 48%, turnout rate, that means that 35%, well, 36% of Iranians voted for the hardliners, right? Do you see how I got the number? So 73% of the people who voted, if you adjust that base, but that's 73% of the people who voted, that means 36% of the entire voting population, right? Because many people don't show up. That's why you have to adjust it. So that means that 36% of Iranians are for the hardliners, right? And then we're gonna do the adjusted for reformers as well. So 88% of the people who showed up, who voted for the reformers. If you adjust that based on the people for the total country, that means 44% of the voting of Iranians who can vote are for reformers, right? So 35% for hardliners, 4% for reformers, right? And that means also that means that how many of people, what percentage of people of Iran voted for Raisi? Basically, what percentage of Iranians wanted to see Raisi as their president? So if you see 60% of the people who voted, again, if you adjust that for the entire people, for all the voting population, that would be 48% times 61%, gives you 30%. That means 30% of Iranians wanted to see Raisi as their president. Okay, so 30%. So this is a president that is backed up by only 30% of Iranians. Okay, any questions so far?
No.
Oh my God, guys, you have such. This guy thinks he has such nuanced take. Should I highlight the simpletons in the live chat? People like Iranian women. Okay, just ignore them, guys. Guys, have some more interesting takes. What is this? Oh my God. All right, let's continue. Okay, so now we have the hardliners and reformers. So basically there's three groups of people, three groups that we want to analyze. Okay, it's easy to now see how much people back reformers and how much people back hardliners, but because there's no option of voting no against the Islamic Republic, it's harder to come up with a number of people who are against the hardliners, reformers, and this regime as a whole. Okay, because the Islamic Republic of Iran doesn't provide that option for that referendum. We don't know the third group of people, which is the most important group of people that is hard to estimate. We don't know how big they are. Okay, so again, three groups of people that we always want to know. What percentage of Iranian people belong to each? The hardliners, the reformers, and the people who are against the regime. These are the three groups. Okay, everybody knows and accepts that the reformers are defeated. The reformers are nothing. The reformers are irrelevant now. They have no authority. They have no legitimacy. The hardliners hate them. The anti-regime people hate them. Nobody likes them. It's very unpopular right now to be a reformer or support the reformers. The reformers are hated by the anti-regime people. Hate the reformers more than they hate the hardliners, because they are seen as useful idiots for the regime to remain in power. Okay, so that's how the reformers are seen by many Iranians. Okay, so but a lot of anti-regime people always dismiss how relevant the hardliners are, which is wrong. I don't think you should dismiss how relevant the hardliners are. They do not represent the majority, but it's a pretty big chunk of the country, right? Like 36% is nothing to dismiss. Okay, like a lot of anti-regime people, not all of them, but a lot of them make it seem like, oh yeah, nobody in Iran supports the regime. It's just like a 1 or 2%. That's nonsense. They're not okay. It's not like what Khamenei says that most people support this regime. That's not true, but it's not a dismissible size. Okay, so it's not the majority, but it's not a group of people that you can ignore. 36% is it's not the majority, but it's a number that you have to take very seriously. Okay,
they also have significant international support.
Oh my God! Yeah, yes, you're right. That's another topic. They actually, yes, not and the kind of international support where people are willing to die for, like, that's pretty intense, right? So that's very Very good point by Susanna again. Yes, that's something a lot of people ignore. The amount of ideological influence they managed to gain around outside of Iran's border is pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. Okay, so here's what I tried to do. I tried to come up with a number that represents the anti-regime people. Okay, so we have the hardliners, the reformers. I tried to calculate based on based on the turnout rate, because again, this remember, this election was the anti-regime people made a really big deal out of reducing the turnout rate on this. They were like, this is our chance to say no to the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is our chance to come out and show the world that this government does not represent us, that the Iranian people do not want this regime, especially after this reformist regime of Rouhani keeps going around and throwing out this number of 70%, right? Like the foreign minister Zarif you have recordings of him in international sittings saying, like, when people are like, oh, this Iran's government is doing human rights violations and it's oppressing its people, what Zarif, like the foreign minister of Iran, would do is we just keep throw out the 70% number. Like, he's like, guys, in Iran, it's not mandatory to vote. And 70% of people show up. Do you really think that they don't want this regime if 70% of the people show up? Like, they keep bragging about this high turnout rate as a way to show that the Islamic Republic is what people want, because when people participate in the election, that means that they are playing in this game, that they are participating in the system, and that's a yes to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And they basically, I think they made a mistake by marketing this so much by saying that all these people are participating. That's a sign that we are representing the people. That's a sign that these people want the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the Iranian people saw how much they come and brag, how much the reformers brag about the fact that this government must be representing them, or else they wouldn't be participating in such a number. So they're like, oh, okay, so that's what that number means. Like, because they thought, like, so some years, like, when we were voting for reformer, we weren't saying yes to the Islamic Republic. Maybe we were voting for a change or something, right? But now that you're telling us, oh, so the reformers are being used as a way for the Islamic Republic to gain legitimacy internationally by saying, like, look, these people want us. So that's what the reformers are for. That's why we hate the reformers now. We're being used. You're dangling, these promises of change in front of us, and we're like little kids, like, oh my God, change. We're gonna grab it, and psych, you take it away and you get a high turnout rate, right? So the reformers are used as a way to promise us change. This is why I'm telling you guys, reform. Just remember that word reform is always a promise for hope and change that doesn't end up coming, okay? Do not believe in these promises for reform. This is what's also happening in Saudi Arabia, okay? So now the people are like, okay, Zarif, okay, Khamenei, you guys are saying that us voting is a yes to Islamic Republic. So watch us say no to the Islamic Republic now, this election, okay? So one thing that the anti-regime people, big mistake that they made is that they went around and said that the turnout is going to be 20%. Okay. And I was like, guys, no, stop it. Just say that it's going to be, we're going to hope for under 50%. Okay. Because if you go around and say it's going to be as low as 20%.
22. A guy on Al Jazeera was saying 22.
Yeah, people they're saying between 18 and 22%. Okay. So if you go around and market that turnout rate, anything above 20% is going to look like, okay, maybe not that bad for the Islamic Republic. I was advocating for saying, guys, like, let's hope for under 50%. That's what I was suggesting, okay? And guess what? Everybody was like waiting for 20%, and now even Khamenei was like, oh, this turnout rate was good. I mean, given the pandemic and all that, around 50% seems pretty decent. That's what they're doing. That's how they're trying to spin it. And like, first of all, it's not 50%, it's 40%, adjusted for the void votes. Also, so say the 40%, and also we should have focused on marketing for under 50%. So this would have been a more juicy victory than now it seems like. Okay, so Yeah, go on. You want to say something?
Gossam is wondering, or I don't know, this is something we could talk about, as if we should trust the numbers
Okay, so
of the
here's the thing.
Islamic Republic.
So there's no way to 100% know, and you don't have to trust the numbers, okay? But until there's proof that here's the thing, it's hard to hide messing with the numbers, okay? So especially because the apparatus of this whole voting process is so big that it's the consequences of making up numbers internationally is going to be so much more costly than just giving it the numbers and spinning it in a positive way, right? So it might be that they're making numbers up, but I would not claim that unless there's evidence. So I'm going to withhold belief unless there's evidence. And it is possible. Here's the thing. Based on some numbers that was anticipated based on pollings that are not within Iran, pollings from outside of Iran, these numbers are believable enough, okay? So that's one thing. It could be argued that these numbers are not made up for multiple reasons. First of all, the cost of that being caught is such more significant than just having bad numbers reported and trying to come up with a interpretation that makes it look better. Okay. Second of all, these numbers are embarrassing. Okay. This 13%, look at, like, the second runner-up after the hardliner candidate is not the reformer; it's the void votes. The void votes got higher turnout, higher participation than the reformers. Okay, like the fact that the idea that this election is made up, that this engineered to just make Raisi win, is so this 13% void vote is so embarrassing, and getting rid of void votes and filling it up with the names that you want would have been so easy. That's another reason why I'm anticipating that these are not made up numbers. Another reason why it could be argued, I'm not saying anything with certainty, that these are not made up numbers. It says 48% number, okay? Because if, like, the turnout was 20% and they brought it all the way up to 48%, they were desperate for this to be at least 50%. Why would they stop at 48%? Like, they were desperate for this to be at least 50%. The fact that it's just short of 50% makes it harder to believe that this was made up. I'm not saying this is not made up number. I'm just saying, given all of this, you need evidence that this is made up. I'm not saying trust that this is not made up. I'm just saying you have to withhold belief unless there's evidence. Another thing, given how this whole process was taking place, if they had made up the numbers without any whistleblowers, hide out all the leaks, hide out any evidence for the fact that they made up numbers, guys, this is such a giant apparatus. There's so many moving parts. There's so many things that if you're saying that the Islamic Republic of Iran managed to make up these numbers without any leaks, without any signs of making up the numbers, and coming up with numbers that was close enough to what was anticipated, if you adjusted for the void votes. So if you look at some of the latest pollings, if they didn't anticipate this high number of void votes, if you take those numbers and you adjust it based on the void votes, you get something close to what actually happened. So based on all of this, if Islamic Republic of Iran managed to be like, okay, let's stay under 50% so that people are not suspicious. Let's keep the void voices high, even though it's embarrassing, but so that keep people not so suspicious. Let's not have a single whistleblower, not have a single evidence that we made up the numbers. Come something close to this. If they manage to pull that off, then the result is the same. The signal to the world is that the turnout was 48%, right? So they have one, like they have the image that you are going to give out to the world, whether it was made up numbers or not, if it was done so perfectly, like this is like godlike capabilities, like this is like CIA level intelligence operations that nothing leaked out. Okay, so if they manage to pull that off, they will. The effect is basically the same as if it was real. Okay, so I'm just saying, like, you need to have evidence to be able to make claim. Without evidence, this is basically the same as a world where they actually got 48% participation. I know a lot of anti-regime people wanted to believe that this was 20%. So they're like, how is this not 20%? How is this 48%? They must have made up these numbers. just remember that when you want something so bad, it's hard, and you're listening to people who are anti the regime, you might get a different, a rosier image of what reality is. Okay, so it might be that maybe your vision of how many people are anti the regime is maybe a little bit higher than what reality is. But I would argue that even based on these numbers, you shouldn't be upset too much, because what I will show is that the anti-regime people are not, even though they're under 50%, they're still the biggest group. Okay, which I will get to. Okay, but Susie, you want to say anything?
Well, I mean, I think it's also worth noting that I don't even know how many, we don't have any sort of numbers on this, but a large amount of votes should be considered invalid because the polling stations were just kept open for hours and hours past they were supposed to be closed.
Yes, that was illegal.
That's illegal.
According to their own rules, the voting time ended and they kept the polling station up, and they announced that as long as there are people who want to vote, we're going to keep the polling stations open.
That's how desperate they are for votes.
Yes, against their own rules. Okay. However, even though that's illegal and it's unfair based on their own rules, it will give us a more accurate number of how many, who supports what. You know what I mean? But it is illegal according to themselves. Which, I mean, it's Iran. You could just make stuff up as you go, right? So who cares about the rule? The rules like can bend if it's good for the Islamic Republic of Iran. By the way, this is not. Guys, I'm not making this stuff up. According to Khomeini himself, according to Khamenei and Khomeini, the rules do not have to be followed if it's in the best interest of the Islamic Republic of Iran, right? Khomeini said that if everybody votes a certain way, even though this is supposed to be a republic, and I say no, it means no. He said that, okay? So he's like, so this whole voting process is a joke. Guys, the whole Velayat Faqih process, when they call the guardianship of the jurist, is the absolute guardianship of the jurist. It's the Velayat Mutlaqeh Faqih, not just Velayat Faqih. They added that Mutlaqeh in the constitution. That means their word, that means the supreme leader's word goes above everyone else's. Like everybody could vote a certain way. They could basically undo any law and undo any vote. It doesn't really matter. If at the end of the day, if the supreme leader wants something, it has to be what he wants, no matter what the vote says, no matter what the law says. Okay. So I don't know if you know this. Khomeini is quoted saying that if it's even killing Mehdi, if that's in the best interest of keeping the Islamic Republic, we have to go against the Mehdi himself.
What?
Yes.
What?
Guys, did you guys know that?
Can you explain to people what that means for those who don't know?
So basically, the gist of it is, between saving the Islamic Republic of Iran and Islam itself.
Yeah. I was like,
Khomeini was like,
whoa.
We have to do anything to save
Katie.
Yes. Okay, so we should bring some of these surprising things that Khomeini had said. We should
Should we
highlight
have a stream where we do Khomeini gems?
Yeah, there are some Khomeini gems which are get us completely wiped off YouTube. Guys,
Totally.
Khomeini has some fatwas about, some commentary about what is allowed to do with children, that Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, who was like, what the hell, this man is a freak, put him to jail. Like, Prophet Muhammad would look at Khomeini like, man, you're a freak. What the hell's wrong with you? Okay? Guys, Khomeini, I'm not, in his book tells you that you could do the things not to, like, okay, Muhammad said 9.
Infant girls.
Infant. Babies. We're not talking toddlers, okay? Khomeini said with like a little crying babies, okay? I'm not gonna finish that thought because I don't know what's gonna happen. But that's what it's in his book. Okay, and I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. All right. All right. Let's go to what I was getting at. I'm hearing something. Cool.
Yes.
So I was trying to. I was trying to calculate what percentage are the anti-regime people. Okay. So here's the thing. People were like, well, if you didn't vote, that means you're anti-regime, right? Because this whole and no, let's not vote, this referendum. I'm like, does
Not
it
quite.
really vote? Not quite. I mean, is it fair to count anybody who didn't vote as a vote as no to the Islamic Republic? I think that's overestimating what not voting means. Okay, people like it doesn't take much energy not to show up at the polling station and not vote. Okay, these void votes these are such a big like fuck you to the Islamic Republic. Okay, because these people showed up, stood in line, okay, for hours, got to the voting booth, and they didn't write any legitimate names.
I have to personally hand you this L.
Yeah, right. So these votes, these are a massive. You could count all of this 13%. I would think most of this 13% as a massive fuck you to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay, that's fair. Okay, but the 51% that did not show up, I don't think you can count all of that as a fuck you to the Islamic Republic. Okay, because people just don't vote. Some people are just not political. Okay, some people just like, man, like I'll let talk about fashion, food, my income, my career, my school. Vote. Like I'm not even following politics, right? So just because somebody didn't show up, that doesn't mean you could count that as a no vote. Okay, so what I did was I went to the election in Iran in 2009 that had the highest turnout rate. Now I know some people who are against the regime. They're like, Armin, this is fake. This number, it was manipulated. Even if you don't think this number was manipulated, everybody thinks this number was manipulated. All right. So there's a major controversy about this number here. Okay, this 85%. Okay, but again, if you think this is hyped up, that works in our favor because this is basically the maximum percentage of the people who would be considered caring about politics in any sense, right? So basically what I would say that at least I could argue, so this is where I get this 15%, okay? I mean, I don't know at least, but this is just estimates. Based on this 85% that we got here, I would say that 15% of Iranians, we could say they're not political. I don't know, is there a better way of coming up with this number? Probably. If you could figure out a better way to come up with this number, let me know and I could replace that right now. Okay, but based on this highest turnout rate, like guys, this was a year that anybody that gave a crap even a slightest bit about politics showed up to vote. Okay, like this was it. This was the moment that the people who liked the IRGC, the people who didn't like the IRGC, the people who liked Khamenei, the people who hated Khamenei, the people that thought like Mousavi is going to say, the people who thought the reformers were going to save the people, their country from Ahmadinejad. People like, oh, this is it. We are going to go full on hardliner or reformer. This is our chance. Anybody who gave a crap even a slightest bit about politics, most of them, yes, there are some people that cared and didn't show up and thought elections were a fraud anyways, but those people were far and few between. This was a time that people showed up. Anybody who cared showed up. Okay, so I would say that 15%, based on that number, 15% is a somewhat reasonable number of an estimate for people in Iran who don't give a crap about politics. Okay, if you think there's a better way to come up with a number here, let me know and I'll replace it. Okay. So based on this 15%, I think that we need to adjust how many people are against this regime. Okay, so if we look at this, what I did was this was the 42% that I came up with, right? So I took the 48% turnout rate and I removed the void votes. And guys, remember, I shouldn't reduce the 12%. I should reduce this wait a minute. Hold on. Oh yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. Okay. So first, before adjusting for the non-political, first I tried to come up with this number. Okay. So we got the 48% turnout rate. Okay. So you might say, okay, 100% minus 48% should be the people who are against the Islamic Republic. I was like, no, we should also add the 6% of the void votes, not this 12%, but the 6%. Okay, because this 12% is the percentage of the people who voted. We should add back the 6% because this 40%, 8% is the percentage of the total number of people who can vote. So we should add back the 6%, which is also a percentage of the total number, not of the people who vote. So basically, you might think like, okay, so based on these numbers, 57% of the people of Iran are against the Islamic Republic. I was like, no, you need to adjust this number with this 15%. You have to reduce this 15% because this is the 15% of Iranians who are just not political. So we're not counting every non-vote and every void vote as no to the Islamic Republic. We're reducing the 15% who don't participate. So if you reduce the 15%, the number I get is 42%. Okay, 42%. And here's the good news and the bad news for the anti-regime people. Okay. The bad news to me is that if this number is correct, if it's not, tell me how I could improve these numbers. But if this number is correct, the bad news is that the anti-regime people, again, I'm not saying the people who are for toppling of the regime, because there are some people who are anti-regime, but they're not necessarily for toppling the regime, okay? So I'm not using Barandozam, I'm saying anti-regime, okay? So Zed Nizam, not Barandozam, because some people who are for, so everybody who's against the regime, all the people who are for toppling the government are against the regime, but not everybody who's against the regime is necessarily for toppling. So I'm being careful with my word. The anti-regime people would argue that they are the majority of the country. Okay, so based on this, they're not the majority of the country. This is less than 50%. So that's the bad news for the anti-regime people. However, the good news is that they are the highest among the three most important groups. They are the biggest group. Okay, so the three most important groups are the hardliners, the reformers, and the anti-regime people. So the anti-regime people are 42%, 43%. Okay, the hardliners are 36%, and the reformers are 4%. Again, yes, I know it's sad. Anti-regime people are not the majority, but they are the biggest group according to this calculation. And again, I'm open to feedback if you want to change numbers. Go on.
Gossam is asking, have you counted people who are not interested in politics and vote to fulfill their religious duties? So, like Khamenei has ruled that it's actually a religious obligation to vote and participate.
Gossam,
and so he said lots of people older than 60 are in this category.
Okay, Qasim, we're talking Iran. Religious duties and politics are mixed. Okay, if you're voting because of religious duties, you're being politically active. Your religious duties are political. You know what I mean? Like, it's in a country like Iran, there is no like hard line between where politic ends and religious starts, right? It's all just mix and mingle. Like, there's no better example of how politics is mixed with religion when you are voting because it's your religious duty. So, like, is this not a political activity? I mean, it's voting. Like, it can't get more political than voting, right? So there's that.
There was another question from Glenn. Armin, it could be possible that some people didn't want to vote because they were afraid of the big disease that's going around. Just coded language I'm saying for YouTube.
That's, yes. That has been the Islamic Republic of Iran's narrative. That's what they want to say. That's what they're trying to say. And unfortunately, it's really hard to. Here's the thing: there doesn't seem to be this disease that you're mentioning doesn't seem to be impacting other political activities, right? When it comes to coming out for supporting for Qasem Soleimani, or people coming out and protesting against the government, or people coming out and making their voices heard in other ways. So the influence on that, unfortunately, yeah, it's true. This must Glenn. That is completely a valid point, and unfortunately, that what you're saying really works in the favor of the Islamic Republic of Iran, because they are trying to. It was really convenient for them that this whole campaign for a low turnout, it was coincided with this whole pandemic, because now they can blame it on the pandemic, right? They're like, oh my God, look, these numbers are even high. If you consider the whole situation that is happening right now, these are actually pretty good. Like, come on, guys, like this would be back 75%, 73% if it was if it wasn't. So that's what they're trying to say. But the thing is that during these are the same people that told people to come and vote, and all the protocols for the pandemic and everything is being taken care of, and it's safe, and you shouldn't be afraid, and everything is not at risk. One thing, so nobody should be afraid. And then when the turnout is low, then they flip and saying, well, people didn't show up because of the fear of this and this and that, right? So again, yes, this is a major thing that people, unfortunately, it's working really well. It's going to work really well with the Islamic Republic narrative. They could blame the pandemic on it. However, this is such a bigger drop than this drop cannot be blamed on the pandemic, all of it. But again, yeah, it's confusing. It's going to be confusing enough to be able for the government to be able to spin it that way, right? So the anti-regime people are trying to dismiss that narrative. They're trying to say no, the pandemic didn't have an influence. Unfortunately, the only way to be able to come up with a better, more accurate number is to wait another 4 years, and hopefully by then we don't have to. Oh my! Imagine if we still have to deal with this whole mess by then. But
Don't
hopefully
even
by
joke about that.
yeah, hopefully by then we don't have to deal with this, and then at that point we're gonna get a better representation of all these numbers. But yeah, you want to say something?
Well, one criticism that I've been seeing a lot of, is people who are apologists for the regime say that even this number that is so low, 48%, is comparable to the turnout for countries we would think of as more legitimate.
Yeah, but
so
they,
for comparison, I have the turnout for this is for votes cast in the most recent national election. This was published in November of 2020. And this is for a lot of different countries. Would it be helpful? Do you think we should look at this by percentage of the voting age population?
Yeah, can you zoom
of
in?
Registered voters, because that's very different.
I think the blue one would make more. No, because I don't know. I don't know which one would be. I think no, voting population. I think that would be more relevant.
Yeah, since you don't have to register.
Well, I mean, people. We want to look at how much percentage of people participate in democracy. Anybody that could, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But can you zoom in?
Yeah, for America's 2016 election, it was. Where did it go? 55%.
Oh wow. Oh wait, what about for 29? Oh, actually, wait. With regard, what about for 2019 elections?
You mean
That's
2020?
the most important. Sorry, 2020. Yes, because
that's not on this one. I can pull that up in a second.
You know why? Because that was with the pandemic. So if they want to blame this on the pandemic, we could compare it to U.S. with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Just a second. Well, I do know that it was a record high turnout. Historically high turnout. It's the most votes ever cast in an American election. Let me find an exact number.
I think that would be. Now you gave me
the census government website says, quote, the pandemic did not prevent Americans from registering and voting at relatively high rates. The 2020 election featured the largest increase in voters between two presidential elections, with a record 17 million more people voting than in 2016. In 2020, 67% of all citizens age 18 and older reported voting.
How many?
67%
67%.
of all
Okay.
citizens age 18
Guys,
and
thank you for
older.
the people in the live chat. Now I have something to work with when it comes, because we on our Persian show, if people come and blame this on the pandemic, you guys now weaponize me with the comeback. You guys have given me a comeback because the Islamic Republic itself brags about having higher turnout rates than countries like United States, which is supposed to be like the the centers of democracy, and they're like, well, our turnout rate is higher, and now that the turnout rate is low, they're blaming it on the pandemic. But this is such a perfect comeback, because now with the pandemic in both countries, the turnout rate in the United States was higher than the Islamic Republic of Iran. So there's no way to run away. There's no way to, yeah, this is
I was shocked at some of these numbers, though. Switzerland in 2019 was below 40%. I wonder when they were held in 2019, like if the pandemic had any sort of effect on that.
But Avi, in the live chat, if you keep talking like that, so I would ban you. Okay, so watch the way you talk. Anybody who's like talks like that, I have no problem banning them.
Yeah, this is very interesting to me. Luxembourg comes in at 48%. Chile at 52%. The only countries below 50% are Switzerland and Luxembourg. I wonder why that is. But yeah, so a lot of defenders will say, like, even still, our turnout is still better than, these like Western European countries.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Yeah, I want to see the. So, at what point? How far up the chart do you have to go to get above? This is all. No, here's the problem. Some of these are pre-pandemic. Some of them are post-pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm. From
I want
2017 to
yeah, no, this is not a good
2020.
chart. It's not a really good comparison. I want to see a chart with all of them being participation rate and rates of all the countries during a pandemic. I want to see how far up the chart you have to go to get above the 48%. And wait, this is already most of these are already above 40.
Yeah, 50% is right here. Is when the
Wow,
first
so you have only one country. Look at this.
No,
You have only
two
one
countries.
country. Okay, you have only two countries that is less than the 48% that Iran got. The 42%, let's be clear. No,
Mhm.
let's do 40%. So you have only one country that is below the 42% that Iran got, right? One country. And a lot of these numbers are during the pandemic. There we go. Send this link to me. I am completely ready for the people who want to for the people who want to do propaganda for the Islamic Republic. I'm going to use this chart. I'm going to be like, only one country got below 42%, and a lot of these numbers are during the pandemic. Perfect. Look at this. Okay. Sis, look at this. This is, oh my God, guys, Christians. If you're a Christian in live chat, this is gonna be so embarrassing. This is gonna be so embarrassing for you. Okay, so we have a Jesus freak in the live chat, right? Okay, look at this. Look at this. I'm not even gonna read this, guys. This is Christian love. This is Christian love. Amazing. Wow.
People are like, Susanna, you're muted. No, I'm just documenting the threat against our team.
Wow.
As per usual.
Oh God. Do you know, Emmanuel, how embarrassing? Guys, not all Christian, okay? But do you know how of an embarrassing representation of Christianity you are, Emmanuel? Like, God damn it, man. Anything else that... Okay, so let me know if... here. Ben is saying this might be a dumb this might seem dumb, but why doesn't the Iranian government just lie about the voter turnout? I already explained that above, so maybe rewatch that. Okay.
Basically, faking it would be harder, worse consequences than just having a low turnout. But this is a little bit of a backtracking, but we had an interesting conversation. I don't know if it was like last night or a few nights ago about who was executed during the mass executions of 1988 and how a lot of sources don't properly talk about the groups that were involved in being executed. Do we want to talk about that now, or maybe we should do another stream on that?
We should do another stream focusing on the 1988 executions. We should have a dedicated stream to mass. Now that Raisi is the president, we should use this as a opportunity to bring more attention to one of the most ignored mass executions of modern history.
Yeah.
So
Because you
I
had
think
some very interesting insight and takes onto why this group was executed, because basically they were beholden to a different ideology that was even stronger so that they couldn't be controlled.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fascinating to talk about. But that's something for you guys in the live chat to look forward to.
Let's just answer one other question. I think, can we hope something good from Iran in the future? I mean, you could expect many. You could expect. You could hope, and you could expect the worst and expect the best. Like, it's really hard to predict these things, right? One thing, it doesn't seem like this regime is gonna go away. Okay, but anything is possible. Okay, what if that's what you guys mean? Okay, a lot of people are like, Armin, when is this regime gonna fall? Doesn't seem like it's possible unless something dramatic happens. Okay, so again, I'm not saying it's impossible. Dramatic as in like oil prices dropping to so fast to numbers that nobody saw coming. Some event happens that just triggers a mass protest in scales that we haven't ever seen before, something like that. Or the death of Khamenei triggering an internal battle within the hardliners themselves. Like, and here's the thing, and even if the regime falls, that might not lead, it might lead to a good outcome, but it might lead to many different situations. It could lead to secular democracy. It might lead to civil war for a decade or two. It might lead to a Shia regime that is even more intense than the one that we have right now, right? So, but if something dramatic doesn't happen, what's most likely outcome is that this regime is going to maintain its power and it's going to become more powerful, but there will be internal struggles. The most struggles that you could look forward to is probably within the hardliners themselves. Like, it's not going to be, the reformers are not going to be a threat to the hardliners. The hardliners are going to be a threat to hardliners. They're going to have competing interests, especially as Khamenei's death is coming by. There's a lot of internal struggle and competition for who's going to come out on top. There's a lot of oil money to be divided, especially with the ending of the sanctions that people are looking forward to in Vienna. This, who's going to be in charge of the armed forces, who's going to be in charge of the oil. That's going to, without the reformers. Yeah, one thing that you have to look forward to is that the hardliners are going to have a harder opportunity to blame reformers for everything. The Republic show of the Islamic Republic is going to become less and less important, as even though it was always a fake show, that disguise, the mask is going to become more and more transparent, and people are like, at some point the Islamic Republic is just going to be more of an Islamic military Islamic, I would say, a military regime Islamic
Is it
military
called
regime.
military junta?
Yeah, I don't know, but even though it probably is already like that, even though we can agree that it's already like that right now, it's going to be more transparently like that. So yeah, but here's another thing. Okay, so here the people who want the regime to fall, they probably are not going to get their wish, but they are a force that the regime cannot ignore. And also the regime, the hardliners, they're also not going to get their wish, which is basically unifying the hardliners and creating a government that doesn't have any internal struggle, creating a unanimous regime that is completely in line with the supreme leader and the IRGC, and everybody is on the same page with each other. That's what the hardliners are trying to do. They're also not going to probably not going to get that. The internal struggle is going to get highlighted more rather than less. So the hardliners are not going to get their dream, and the people who want the regime to fall are also not going to get. And they'll
Well, in
both.
fact, that's already started. The
Yes, that's
election debates were a big show of that. Of all the candidates are ostensibly hardliners. It's just to what extent arguing with each other and blaming each other and displaying that they are useless, like even without the sanctions.
Yes. Yeah, but yes, one thing else that is already starting is that we can see that the IRGC is showing more openly the tensions that they have with the office of the supreme leader, right? Like it's getting, like, we know behind the scenes the IRGC and the office of the supreme leader, guys, the office of the supreme leader is going to be there even after the supreme leader is gone. Okay, and they want to make sure the next supreme leader is not going to dismiss them the way this supreme leader dismissed the other. So when Khomeini died, Khamenei came to power. Khamenei completely was like one by one eliminated all the people who were responsible for the Islamic Republic of Iran in favor of his own people, right? So the office of the supreme leader now wants to make sure that the next supreme leader is not going to replace the people who managed to come to power through Khamenei, right? So this is Khamenei, and this is the office of the supreme leader. And when he rose, they rose with him. And now when you remove Khamenei and put the next supreme leader, the people that rose to power because of Khamenei, they want to make sure that their position is secure. And history shows that their position is not secure. So if they have a say, so there's the IRGC has internal struggles, but the IRGC is also competing with the office of the supreme leader on how much influence each one of these groups has over who becomes the next supreme leader. So this is what's keeping the hardliners awake at night. The hardliners are not staying awake at night because of the reformists. The hardliners are not staying awake at night because of the anti-regime people. The hardliners are terrified because of the other hardliners. That's what they're afraid of every night, and that's what they're mostly focusing their strategies against right now. Okay, so we have to see who's going to become the two people who are being discussed as potential next supreme leaders. It might be neither of these two, but the people who are being discussed is the current president Raisi, and also Khamenei's son, Mujtaba Khamenei. Okay,
who he is widely rumored to be the one who picks the president anyways. At least with
he
the
picked
previous
Ahmadinejad.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, that's the topic for a different day. It would be very interesting to see what happens. I could promise you one thing: it's going to be entertaining. So grab your popcorns. But whether it's going to be but yeah, nothing else is predictable. Let's just do one. Oh my god, this is an irrelevant question.
Gossam has a question.
Yeah.
Khamenei had 11 to 12 in his office. Khamenei has thousands.
40,000.
Oh, Khomeini, not shoot. I always do this. How many will have next supreme leader? Next one will have to turn Tehran into his office. I don't get it.
Okay, so the office of the supreme leader when Khomeini was in power was 10 to 12 people. Okay, the office of the supreme leader right now is 40,000 people. that work for Khamenei behind the scene in his office. Okay, so Qasem saying, what are we gonna get to? Well, here's this interesting thing, Qasem. Raisi has its own operations separate from Khamenei. Okay, and we saw. I don't know if you saw Qasem, the leaked image. Well, it wasn't leaked. It was actually a marketing. They went into his offices in one city. I think it was in Isfahan, and it was like, what is this? This is like operations. Like it was like a call, like it was beautiful, like really like marbles everywhere, and it was so big, and the desks were beautiful, and it was like a huge building, and people were behind the desks and having meetings, and there was a call center, and this was Raisi's office in one city, like not even the main city where he worked, where he's mostly based in
Oh my
Mashhad.
gosh.
All right, and people were like bragging about, look at the level of operations that we have. Okay, so I was interested, like, okay, so does he have an office like that in every city? And if you add that up, how many people are working in Raisi's office? And if he becomes the supreme leader, does the 40,000 people that Khamenei have, does that get merged with the people that he has? Like, is
Oh
this
my
like,
corporate
I don't know.
merger.
I don't know how that's going. Yeah, Puya is like, it was a super villain. Yeah, it looked like it did look like it.
That's so wild, especially
Oh,
considering just like the starvation and the suffering that people are going through.
yeah. Qasim is saying, yeah, it was
It
like a
was a
palace.
palace.
It did look like a palace. And guys, here's the thing: Raisi is supposed to be a man with no wealth, and he has nothing in his name, and he's like, oh, like a poor
I'm just
man.
a scholar.
I'm just like an Islamic scholar of humble beings. Yeah, but he lives the life of a king, and he has like works in a place like royalty would be working in. But like they keep bragging about how poor he is. Like you're effectively rich, even if you're not technically money in your
You
name.
look
Like
like you live in good.
you look like you live good. Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Okay, guys, so we should end this here. This was interesting. Thank you, Puya and Gotham, for being here, because I needed you guys here for this, and thank you for your interesting questions, especially from Katie as well. Katie saying Raisi sounds like Modi and Yogi before they got to power. Yeah, it's just, yeah, so we'll see. Oh, one last thing I want to say is Raisi seems like somebody that just accepts orders from Khamenei. Okay, but so that's might be why they want to make him the next supreme leader, because the office of the supreme leader might want somebody in power that would just sign things that you put in front of them and just say okay. So maybe they want somebody that could be controlled. Raisi has been proven to be an obedient dog for Khamenei, and maybe that's his way of saying, like, look, I'm a safe supreme leader. You guys who are the behind the scenes of the supreme leader, who work for the supreme leader, you could trust me. I will not rock the boat too much. You guys will all keep your positions. Maybe, okay, maybe we don't know. Maybe that's why they're making him a president, so that he could become a candidate for the supreme leader. Or it might be the opposite. Maybe they want to make Mushtaba the supreme leader, and they're making Raisi the president, because whoever is the president is going to lose a lot of popularity in the next 4 or 8 years, and that would be a way for them to not make him the supreme leader. But if they are trying to make him the supreme leader, you have to
Or
remember, you wait, just one. Khamenei also was like an obedient dog when Khomeini was around. Like he apologized in a letter to Khomeini for saying something that Khomeini was disagreeing with. But when eventually he came to power, he completely switched, and he became like so much more aggressive. Like when Rafsanjani put Khamenei in power, Rafsanjani thought like he's going to maintain control over everything, because Khamenei didn't even have the religious backing to become a pathetic placeholder holder for the supreme, and Rafsanjani is going to be able to maintain power that way. Oh wait, are we back?
yeah.
Oh my god, are we back? Are we back? No, what's happening?
Hello?
Are we back?
Yeah. You can't seem to hear me though.
No, I'm not me. I'm having connection problem, but I think
Let's just go now.
Is it me who's kind of having connection problems, or is Susanna?
I think it's you. Yeah, it was him. Okay, guys. Well, that was fun. Make sure to like this video and subscribe and sign up for our newsletter where you get the sexiest blasphemy on the video or on the internet for free. So have a good night, everyone.